Well, hello. It is, I apologize for the late start. It is Monday, March 17th, and I am Rob, a developer dad. And March 17th. It's St. Patrick's Day. Top of the morning to y'all. Let's build some code. I am working in C# and .NET with Blazor on a program that is going to help me as a dungeon master run and create some of the details that I tend to gloss over when I'm designing and running my D&D games. So let's share the screen. And this is a view of the list of NPCs that I've generated while I've been building this thing. And as you can see, it's getting a little long. I've got like 114 of them stored here. And I've been working for the past probably 3 working days on this thing with on the edit capability. So before we go deep into editing and what I've been doing here, let's take a look at what one of these people looks like. So we've got, basic information about the NPC here. We see that they're Sealy Fae, they're a cartographer, 305 years old, 5'3", 105 pounds. Here's their D&D 5e compatible stat block. And of course we can re-roll that. And some text information about, what do they look like, their personality, profession, and their background. And last week I added the ability to edit those text details. Now, as a dungeon master, sometimes I need to customize the game stats. And I've got this stuff coming out simply by decorating the properties on the townsperson object with a custom attribute I stood up last week. And then the software reads the custom attributes on whatever class we're editing and creates this form dynamically. I did not hard code a townsperson editor page in my Blazor program. Instead, I kind of wrote a program for the program to build its own edit pages. Now, that's great for typical, normal, simple, edit this property on this object kind of stuff. For things that don't apply to virtually every object that's managed by a program in existence, we have to do something different. So, in the code, what I have done is inside the object services, which is where I stood up the editable model builder, the edit model class, which just holds a collection of edit fields, which is nothing more than a reflection of those properties on whatever object we're editing that have been marked with that custom attribute that I talked about a second ago. And I need a way for the editable model builder and the edit model, while it's doing its thing, to be able to detect whether or not we need a custom editor that's built just specifically for the instance of whatever class we're working with. So I created this specialized namespace underneath object services. And I created a namespace just for townsperson statistics. And you can see I've added a Blazor component in here called editor 5e. It hasn't got anything useful on it yet. Just an H3. And my goal for this session is to get this editor for 5e stats string to appear in that editor window when I load one of my townspeople into the edit form. So let's see if we can make it go. So I've got my editor type map. And this is a little helper class that sits just outside of the folders for each specialized editor I'm going to need eventually. And It's going to be accessible to the editable model builder and probably also the edit model. We'll see. I'm not quite sure where I want to drop that code that's responsible for adding it. So right now, this class doesn't really do anything at all. So we need to add a constructor. Here we go, editor type map. And I've toyed with the idea of making this static just because it's not really going to have much in the way of dependencies or anything like that. Because the dictionary here holds the name of the underlying model's type, as you can see here, type name. And then type is just the .NET type of whatever the editor we're creating is. So I'm going to get rid of this instantiation up here in the private member declaration. And I'm going to stand that up here. Editor map equals a new dictionary, keyed on string, and list of type. I want to add some comments here. Dictionary.key equals the type name of the object that we're assigning a custom editor to. A list of the custom editor types that are designed to, what you say, to edit specific parts of the identified type. Stop. Stop it. I said stop auto-completing for me. For example, townsperson. For example, an editor specifically for changing a townsperson's 5e stats. So we've instantiated just an empty dictionary in the constructor for the editor type map. Now we need to add editors to it. And I think rather than just eventually ending up with dozens of editor map or add editor calls to this, because that feels silly, I'm going to add a private method down at the bottom of the class. Region, editor type map, private methods. Now, I don't know if I'll ever expose these public methods outside of this class. I probably won't add or expose add editor outside of the Blazor application. So I'm going to go ahead and make this internal right now. I didn't make it private because I might want access to this method from other components. But I didn't want to make it fully private. I didn't want to leave it fully public. This one, void add well-known editors. And boom, Copilot guessed right. So all we're going to do is we're just going to add an editor for the townsperson class. And I'm going to go name of townsperson. That's much better because it eliminates magic strings. And then up here in my editor type map constructor, I'm just going to call add well-known editors. All right. So in theory, I should be able to, in my editable model builder, excuse me, add a private editor type map. We gotta bring in the namespace. Okay, and we have to instantiate that. Editor type map equals new editor type map. Build model, turn new edit model instance. Okay. Excuse me. And I think what we will do is we're going to extend the constructor on the edit model. And we're going to add instance has changes, original values, private list of type custom edit UIs. Save. I'm thinking. Cross that bridge when I come to it. Object instance. Equals new. So we'll always have an instance of this list of type, no matter what. And list of type, custom edit UIs. Get rid of this incorrect helper code. What even are you doing, Copilot? It does get very, very eager. And we're just going to pass that in with a default value of null. So that makes this into an optional parameter on the constructor. If custom edit UIs is not equal to null, we'll add whatever comes in to our existing custom edit UIs. And you know what? I don't really like that. We're just going to do a straight up reassignment. We're inside the constructor, so we'll just do a straight overwrite. And we should be about set. Fields, yeah. So here's an interesting little problem. If we take a look at build fields, where are we? Here's build fields. It uses reflection against our instance. And all it does is it loops over all of the properties on that instance's actual type. And we use a little bit of recursion to dig into complex properties that are on the instance and so on. It's pretty basic, just tree traversal. And the way this works is we've got this user editable attribute that's been added to the class that defines our instance. Now, our instance classes are going to be coming from outside of this this assembly, the UI, the Blazor project. And the Blazor project, of course, has a reference to the assemblies that have those class definitions. It's kind of how it all works. And it'd be tempting to think that we could just reach out to the assembly where the townsperson class is declared, give it a reference to my Blazor project, and then create an attribute that says, hey, use this custom editor. Or even to not even do that, but to alter the attribute definition and say this property uses a custom editor and its type name is this. Well, that's fine until I'm using this assembly, the Game Tools Framework assembly, or my Townsperson Manager assembly, and I'm building a completely different user interface for it, or I'm using it somewhere else. Then I have to bring along this whole Blazor UI project with whatever else I'm building using those parts. Or if I just use a string literal to identify the type name for the custom editor, that's completely meaningless to somebody who might be, or to me later in the future, who might be trying to build a UI. And I'm like, what the hell is this editor 5e thing? So that's not going to be the move. Instead, because in our specialized namespace here, we know that it's townsperson stats, and we know that they're 5e, right? I think what I'm gonna need to have to do is a little bit of research first, but I think I'm going to have to introduce a very small level of inheritance here. Whoops. So let's add a new file. It's going to be a class. Specialized editor base. Boom. We're going to make it abstract. And I'm going to add public string edited type name with a get and protected set, public string, edited property name with a get and protected set. Now, I am going to take a 2-minute step away. I'll be right back, and then we're going to keep working with this. It'll just be a minute. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So all we really care about is making sure that we can set those properties on any of these Blazor components that we're authoring. Now, before I go much further down this path, because if I introduce a new base class onto those components, I'm more than a little bit concerned that there's some implicit inheritance happening somewhere in here. I really feel like after having made this code behind for the townsperson stats like the editor 5e thing, I feel like there's some invisible inheritance happening within the Blazor component framework itself. So I want to just reach out to Bing real quick and say, is there a hidden base class in Blazor for that my custom Blazor components are derived from? All custom components are derived from a base class called component base, yabba yabba yabba, lifecycle methods, etc., etc. When you create a Razor file, it automatically compiled into a C# class and inherits from component base. So if I want to have consistent behaviors available on some of my custom Blazor components and decide to put those behaviors into a base class, then my base class needs to inherit from component base. Just confirming. Okay, custom base class must inherit from component base. That's all I wanted to make sure of. I suspected that was the case, but I didn't want to add that in if I didn't have to. Now, where's the file for this? Where are you? Specialized editor base inherits from component base and ASP.NET Core component. Boop. Okay. Now, edited type name. Non-nullable property must contain a non-null value. Require modifier declaring the property is nullable. What's this required modifier? This is a new thing in a more recent version of fix all declare is nullable. Methods. Now. We'll do that. We'll just make an empty constructor for serialization, although we probably don't need to worry about serialization, but it's okay. There, that'll shut it up. Now, it can't be an empty constructor. Yes, it can. This string.empty, string.empty. There, that'll shut it up. Okay. Now I should be able to pop into my editor5e.razor.cs. Where are you? You're over here. And inherit this guy from specialized component base. That immediately becomes Anger code. Specialized editor base, you silly goose. Editor base. There we go. Don't really need an on-initialize, but I do need a CTOR. And it needs to stop creating this .razor nonsense. And I do need a townsperson. Instance. And I need to go base get a peek at those constructors. Edited type name, edited property. Okay. Name of townsperson. Name of townsperson dot stats. Game stats. Let's take a peek. NPC stats 5e. Cool. All right. And it might be nullable. That's a little weird. I'm going to build and see if that wises up at all. Because I'm trying to chain this constructor to the specialized editor base, but it seems to be leapfrogging over the specialized editor base straight to component base, which is not correct. Hey, Copilot, take a look at specialized editor base and the editor5e.razor.cs file and tell me why the constructor for the editor5e is trying to call directly to the constructor base or the component base constructor instead of the constructor from a specialized editor base. Yeah, that's definitely bizarre behavior from the compiler. Constructor inherits from specialized editor base, may not match the base class definition. Okay, instance. Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. Let Blazor handle component lifecycle. Ah, I see what I need to do. Instead of passing to the constructor, add specialized editor base to the chat. Here we go. Okay, now you've got both files I'm working with in your attached to this prompt, trying to introduce an intermediate parent class into the component hierarchy. Specialized editor base will provide additional metadata about an editor component, helping the edit framework match my custom editors against the types it's building editor UIs for. Let's see what Claude can tell me here. probably have to put this declaration. Public partial class, editor 5e, specialized editor base. Okay. Using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Components. Add that in. Public times person. And instead of doing this way, excuse me, back, base, edited type name, name of townsperson, edited property name, game stats, back that out, and it still doesn't like it. Okay. Yeah, it's still giving compiler errors. Any other way I can provide the type and property applies to type and property information to the edit form builder for these specialized editors. And the thing is, I need it to be like a consistent way, ideally enforced with some sort of either inheritance pattern or something like that. Yeah, my head was going down this road already, and I quite like it. That's much, much, much better. Because as I was talking through this thing that I'm trying to do, this particular kind of code construction, as soon as I said metadata, my brain went, hey, stupid, use an attribute. You know, as soon as I typed metadata, not metadata, but metadata in my prior prompt, my brain triggered and said, hey, silly, metadata is what attributes are for. Yep, Copilot and my brain are absolutely correct. Specialized editor attribute inherits from attribute. Get rid of this ASP.NET Core components. Get rid of all of this nonsense. Make this public. Actually, we'll just get rid of the modifier altogether. The specialized editor attribute, modify the editor 5e class. Attribute usage. Allow multiple. That's correct. Inherited false. And replace the paren that I just got rid of. And finally, CTOR. Edited type name. Attribute. Stop that. Edited type name equals edited type name. Edited property name equals edited property name. Bam. That's all set. I do need to change the name of this file. Rename. Attribute. Save. Come back over here and get rid of this inheritance nonsense. My buddy Nick Cosentino, also known as Dev Leader, is constantly railing against abusive inheritance. And I mostly agree. Sometimes inheritance can be incredibly useful, but it's not nearly as universally applicable as your university professors would have you believe. Back in the olden days of the 1980s and the early 90s and stuff, when object-oriented programming was first becoming a thing, inheritance was the king of the world. And as time went by, it's proven to be less and less frequently the ideal solution for building up complex object definitions. So my specialized editor, instead of using townsperson, I'm going to use name of townsperson, but I have to spell it right. There we go. And for the name of the property that this editor is applied to, name of, and it'll say townsperson.stats, but I'm going to say game stats. There we go. Boom. Townsperson instance. Public. And this is going to be NPC 5e, NPC stats 5e, possibly nullable, game stats, and it's just going to be instance.gamestats. And I need to rename that from a lowercase to an uppercase letter. Pow. Public. Override. Task. On. Parameters. Set async. What are you complaining about? Oh, it has to be protected. Oops. There we go. Need to do stuff in here when the instance parameter changes. Pow. Now, we can close down this specialized editor attribute now. And out in the editable model builder, we've received an editor type map. Okay. Now, private. And it's going to be a list of type. Get custom editors for type. Beautiful. New list of type. Bam! Thing of beauty. And I don't like this little orange text, rebuild users, blah, blah, blah. Usually means I screwed something up, made a mistake somewhere that needs my attention. So I'm just going to rebuild right now to make sure I've eliminated any of the possible compiler errors that I may have forgotten to address as I created them. Var custom editors equals get custom editors for type. Now edit model custom editors. Now, I do need to stop and restart the application at this point because I have done some horrible, horrible things to the internal linkages between types and classes and this and that and the other thing. So before I can test that this doesn't crash my application, that's the only test I want to have pass. And it's not even an automated test. It's just me pushing buttons and saying, hey, what does this do? So we've got breakpoints. I've rebuilt. And then after this, I am going to say thank you for joining me and conclude this morning's stream. Now, I am 99 point bunch of 9% sure that very soon I'm going to be starting to work with somebody on a part-time basis, helping them clear their backlog of private consulting work that they've got. They are falling victim to their own success and have become a little bit overwhelmed. So we're having conversations to see if there's a way I can come in and help out and take some of that load off of her for hopefully an extended period of time for my sake. And for her sake, if she continues having more work than she can get done, that's great for her too. So I gotta try and track her down. She is run off her feet busy. So yeah, but that's hopefully going to be starting soon, which means I'm going to be giving her my mornings from Monday to Friday, which means I'm going to need to massage my stream schedule perhaps significantly. Ah, dang blast it. So after I've had that conversation with her, hopefully later today, um, I'll be working the schedule for my live streams. But I do intend to continue streaming at least once a day, Monday through Friday. I might move a session or two to the weekend or something like that. We'll see how my level of whelm is once I'm onboarded and working with her. So yes, schedule changes are coming, and I'm probably going to make some decisions about those today. So I may or may not have an afternoon session. And that also means for this project to keep moving forward, I'm going to need to work on it off stream. So the nature of my streams might change to, instead of being 2 1-hour streams where I just hack at the code live and chat with whoever comes in, it might become like a daily code review type thing where I review the changes of what I did, discuss the decisions I made to arrive at the structures that I arrive at, things like that. It might become much more teaching, live example type things. And in that case, I probably need to consider a different project or something like that for continuing these live coding streams. We'll see. Changes in the air is all I can really tell you for sure right now, because as far as the nature of the changes, all of my queries are coming up null right now. They are to be determined. So we've got my NPC list, and I just want to hit that breakpoint and see what happens when I spin into this thing. Now, I also want to come in here and go to the definition of editor type map. And we're just going to park a breakpoint inside its constructor. Let's take a peek at it. Okay, so we've got our editable type maps, get custom editors for type. Let's step in. Boom. So we'll come in here to this property. We've only got one thing in the type map, and because I set it up as an iterator, we're not actually going to be able to step into that code. But I've got one custom editor, one custom editor, which is good because I've only created and assigned one. And I'm going to push play and come back to the UI. Boop. And it loaded just fine, just the way I wanted it to. Brightwood, the III Esquire FUD. There we go. Elo and Brightwood needed the third Esquire FUD. That's an inside joke that me and some guys at a job I worked years and years and years ago, we kept adding titles to made up people's names, and we found it ridiculously amusing. But I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to reset. Come here. Come here, you. All right, good. And now I'm going to cancel out. It looks like all of my interactivity is still working. I am not surprised at that. We haven't really made any changes that would break any of the existing program flow or code or anything like that yet. I'm going to keep plowing away at this and see how far I can get. And then as soon as I've got an update on my streaming and work schedule, I will place an update on Twitch and on YouTube. And I will see you all next time. It will either be this afternoon or perhaps tomorrow afternoon. So until then, take care of yourselves. Thanks for joining me, and happy coding.